All right, your body, the investment you can't afford to neglect. Now, if you're watching this, you probably already invest your time and money into things that grow, your skills, your career, your business, your portfolio. But here's what most high achievers overlook. Your body is the first and most valuable investment that you'll ever make. And neglecting it is like having a leaking foundation under a growing skyscraper. So you have to start to apply the investor's mindset to your body and to your health. And most ambitious professionals understand compound returns when it comes to financial investments. Yet they fail to apply the same logic to their physical health. Just as a well diversified portfolio grows exponentially over time through consistent contributions and reinvested dividends, your body responds to the cumulative effect of daily health decisions. So every time you make a decision to maybe eat fast food instead of a home cooked meal, it compounds over time. And these habits are what leads you to become unhealthy, out of shape, and really far from what you want to be looking like. So today in this presentation and this video, I'm going to show you why building a healthy body pays the biggest lifetime return and how to start investing in it now. And it's not just about crash diets or extreme fitness regimens. It's about understanding the fundamental economics of health capital and making strategic decisions that compound over decades. Think of this as your health investment prospectus, a science-backed blueprint for maximizing your most valuable asset whilst you're still building your career and wealth. Because the last thing that you want once you've gained a higher paying job or to go into a very high position is for your health to falter. You don't want to be the guy who's 40 and gets a heart attack because he wasn't taking care of himself. And what's great is every time you invest into your health, you're actually saving money on the back of medical bills and medications that you'll otherwise have to use in the future because you haven't looked after yourself. So who's speaking now? I'm Jit. I'm a biomedical science graduate. I'm a soon-to-be medical student. I'm also the founder of South Asian Health Lab. And my mission is to help South Asian professionals and high achievers protect their health so they can keep winning in their careers without burning out their bodies. Think of today's content as a wake-up call to start treating your body like your most valuable asset, because that's precisely what it is. And the strategies that I share aren't generic fitness advice. They're specifically designed to address the unique metabolic challenges that we face as South Asians. And usually this is from high genetic predispositions to insulin resistance to the dietary patterns that dominate our communities as well. So the wealth and health parallel. So understanding compound returns. Now, here's the mindset shift that changes everything. Just like how money compounds, so does health capital. But critically, it compounds in both directions. So this bidirectional compounding effect is what most professionals catastrophically misunderstand. So let's look at positive compounding first. So every smart health habit you build early pays exponential dividends. So if you start lifting weights regularly, it builds muscle mass that increases your metabolic rate for decades. Walking daily improves insulin sensitivity and reduces diabetes risk by up to 40%. Sleeping well optimizes hormone production, cognitive function, and cellular repair. And managing stress protects telomeres and reduces inflammatory markers. So telomeres are the parts at the end of your chromosomes that basically degrade every time you get older. Every time a cell replicates, the telomeres get a bit shorter, and that's what contributes to aging. So health capital can also negatively compound as well. And you can have like health debt instead. So every unhealthy habit you tolerate creates mounting health debt. So poor sleep disrupts leptin and ghrelin levels. So these are the hormones that control your hunger signals. And this leads to weight gain and insulin resistance. Long sedentary days increases visceral fat and the chance of cardiovascular disease. Stress eating creates inflammatory cascades and metabolic dysfunction. So it ruins your metabolism and just floods your metabolism and floods your body with food and chemicals that aren't really beneficial to you in the long run. And inconsistent activity accelerates muscle loss after age 30. So if you don't take care of yourself, if you don't exercise, then your body will break down, your muscles will break down, you will feel a lot less strong. your muscles will start to atrophy because of how little activity that you do. And people, they usually think that this is what's normal, what's supposed to happen after you turn 30. But that's not the case. That's not true, right? Many humans in the past or in history have led very healthy and fit bodies in, very late into their 40s and even 50s. And all you really need to do is to try and implement these better habits earlier on. So the cost of this is that visceral fat, which is the fat around your vital organs, accumulates, and it leads to elevated blood pressure, reduced focus, and ultimately a compressed health span. So even if you might live longer because of modern medicine, the number of hours, the number of number of days or years that you spend healthy is going to drastically decrease. So most people invest early in their careers, skills, and savings, but treat health like an expense, something to address later when they have more time. But by the time they realize health is an investment, they're already paying compound interest in the form of medications, doctor visits, and lost productive years. The opportunity cost of this delayed investment is staggering. So if you don't invest in health early, then you're going to suffer for it later on. If you aren't doing some sort of strength training, some sort of cardio, you should be ideally doing 150 minutes minimum cardio every week, and you should be doing at least 2 to 3 strength training sessions just to make sure that your body has that vitality required to become a high achiever in the field that you're working in and to give yourself the best health outcomes possible. So let's look at the hidden cost of neglect. So for many South Asian professionals, the pattern is painfully predictable and devastatingly common. So let me paint a picture that might feel uncomfortably familiar. So let's say you go to university, this between ages 18 to 24 for most people, and you have intense study sessions. You have late nights fueled by sugary snacks, minimal exercise, irregular meal times, and building academic credentials while systematically degrading your metabolic health. Then you reach your early career, where this is your mid-20s to 30s, and your career hustle takes precedence over your health. So you have long commutes. You're taking a long time to catch the train or public transport to work or drive to work. You have extended work hours. You have skipped workouts. And you kind of tell yourself, well, I'll get fit once things settle down, and it becomes a recurring promise. So then you have career acceleration, ages 30 to 35. So you have big meals late at night, chai breaks with biscuits, weekend social events centered around food, creeping belly fat, brain fog, and increasing reliance on caffeine to maintain the performance that you would have naturally been able to do as a healthy young 20-year-old. The wake-up call normally comes between the mid-30s to mid-40s when you start to get certain chronic diseases. So borderline or elevated blood sugar, high blood pressure, elevated triglycerides, which are just fats. So you basically have higher levels of fats and higher levels of sugars. And the GP might suggest lifestyle changes or medication, and the body starts sending invoices for decades of neglect. So you'll find yourself, your back is aching. You can't play with your kids as easily. You get tired very easily. You might look in the mirror and you might wonder where that fit young 20-year-old man went. But now looking in front of him is this overweight, unhealthy, partly, almost morbidly obese, young, kind of middle-aged man. And that's where most people kind of realize that they have to make a change. And if you're younger than this, well, then great. You can make a change much sooner. And if you are this age, well, it's never too late to start to look after your health. It's better late than never. So if you quantify the real cost of not looking after your health, we have tangible losses. So you lose the most productive years. So you have more sick days. You have slower cognitive processing. You have reduced stamina for high pressure projects. And mostly people who get sick or they get unhealthy or they get out of shape, you notice that they're sluggish, they're slow, they can't really do things. They don't really feel that ambition that they used to feel. Your physical health is so closely tied to your financial health as well. The stronger you get physically, the more healthy you are, then the more energy you have and the more vitality you have to chase after things in your day-to-day life. So studies show that employees with poor metabolic health take 2 to 3 times more sick days annually. You also have the opportunity cost of this poor lifestyle. So a shorter career runway at the peak of your earning potential. So chronic conditions often emerge in your 40s and your 50s. And this is when you experience this is where your experience and expertise command premium compensation. So imagine you spend 20, almost 30 years getting to a position where you're getting paid mid six figures, maybe even seven figures. But because you're tired, because you're overweight, because you haven't taken care of your health, you can't capitalize on that. We want to be able to capitalize on those prime earning years by staying healthy, by having that very long and healthy health span. And also the direct financial cost. So the average person with type 2 diabetes spends $3,000 to $5,000 annually on medical expenses. Mostly these chronic diseases, they end up becoming more than just a single disease. You might get diabetes and then end up with some other types of diseases that come along with that. You become obese and then you end up with this plethora of diseases, which, all might cost quite a lot of money to get sorted out, to see specialists, to get fixed. So cardiovascular disease treatments can cost tens of thousands over a lifetime. And that's money that you'd rather be spending on your children, on your own retirement, on yourself, doing things that you enjoy, and spending it on your hobbies. So in terms of family impact, there's less energy for your children. You set a poor health example. If I work as I run a tutoring center here in Sydney. And I work as a tutoring center owner here in Sydney, alongside my biomedical science degree that I've done, and also trying to get into medical school. And I see that the parents that are the healthiest usually have the kids that are the healthiest as well. And I notice that the parents that are doing activities and doing exercise and extracurriculars, or things outside of their normal 9 to 5 jobs, they set that standard and they make sure that their kids are also healthy and their kids are also taking part that their kids are also taking part in activities and exercises that keep them healthy. So you want to set a good example to your kids, and if you don't have kids already, your future kids, and to anyone else around you, like your family. Personally, I started to go to the gym 4 years ago, like very, 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 very regularly. I'd say almost every day, and over the past year, I've actually gotten my parents to join the gym as well. And I've seen that, by me setting that example of being the healthy person, choosing the healthy foods, eating within a reasonable calorie limit for the day, then I was able to persuade my parents and to inspire my parents to also start going to the gym. In fact, I pay for their memberships, and they love going to the gym. They love going and taking care of their health. And I know that even though they're relatively, they're much older now, it's much better for them to start now than to wait any longer, to give them the best possible life outcomes. You also don't want to burden your family with caregiving responsibilities so early on. If you don't look after your health, and if you get a very serious chronic illness, then your family will spend more time taking care of you, and that might kind of take away from their ability to go out, to do well in their lives, to go and chase that career, chase that success. You really want to understand that there is a great cost in not looking after your health. So why starting now multiplies your returns. Now, the human body responds to compound signals with remarkable precision. You don't get fit from one workout, just as you don't retire wealthy from one deposit. The magic lies in consistency over time, allowing biological adaptation to work its exponential effects. So you just want to be doing something constantly, or not constantly, but consistently over a long period of time. What's beautiful about earning money, building relationships, of getting healthy is that you don't have to be special. You just have to show up. Like 90% of getting to your physical goals is just showing up. It's choosing to eat a home cooked meal rather than eat takeout. And that also saves you money as well. It's choosing to go to the gym, even if you're tired, for just 10 minutes. If you only have 10 minutes to give 10 minutes. That way you give yourself a really good position, really good kind of habit that constantly compounds over time. So let's talk about your muscle first. So your metabolic insurance. Now, muscle tissue is built and maintained over years and not weeks. Starting strength training in your 20s or 30s creates a metabolic buffer that protects you for decades. Each kilogram of muscle burns an additional 13 calories daily at rest. A 24-hour, 24/7 return on investment. What's also great about building muscle is that increased muscle mass has been correlated with increased likelihood of surviving, very, very dangerous diseases like cancers, right? In many cases, if you get these chronic diseases, if you get these problems where in the future with your health, then having a high level of muscle mass means that your body has a reservoir of amino acids, which are these, basically what makes up proteins, to draw upon in case it has to fight off something like cancer. So that's also very important. Metabolic health, the long game. So your metabolic health is preserved through decades of consistent nutrition and activity. Your insulin sensitivity today predicts your diabetes risk 20 years from now. Early intervention creates a physiological momentum that's far easier to maintain than reverse. So what that means in a simpler way is that your metabolism is how your body works. And if you exercise consistently, if you eat healthy, then you can improve the way your body works. You can set yourself up to prevent yourself from having these lifestyle diseases, which will debilitate you in your mid-life, in the middle of your life. And you also get the runway advantage. So early efforts buys you a higher ceiling for performance and a longer runway for productivity. So that the earlier you start taking care of your health, the longer you can spend healthy, the longer you can spend earning money, supporting your family, becoming that leader in your community. That's all very important. So early effort buys you a high ceiling for performance and a longer runway for productivity. Athletes who train consistently from their 20s can compete into their 40s. Professionals who invest in health early can work at peak capacity well into their 60s and 70s. The earlier you start investing into your body, the bigger the compounding effect, especially critical for South Asians who face 2 to 4 times higher risk of insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disease compared to European populations, often manifesting 10 to 15 years earlier in life. And this genetic predisposition makes early intervention not just beneficial, but it's essential. So you have to start this early, especially if you're South Asian. Starting early means that you can stay healthy. Our genetics our genetics developed in a time where we were kind of outside on farms. We were doing a lot of physical manual labor. And we kind of went from that to being very sedentary in basically just a click of your fingers. Within 200 years, pretty much everybody in the South Asian continent has moved away from physical, manually demanding jobs into ones where we just do service work. And our bodies and our metabolisms just weren't equipped for that, because not only did we switch from going from mainly agricultural subsistence to service work and being very sedentary, which means we're not moving around, we also kept eating food, the same amount of food that we ate before, if not more food, more calories, more fats. Not all fats are bad for you, but more oils and things like that really, aren't beneficial for our bodies and the changes that we've made to our lifestyle. So let's have a look at the 4 high return health investments. So think of these as the 4 best performing assets in your health portfolio. Just as a balanced investment portfolio diversifies across asset classes, a robust health strategy requires attention to multiple biological systems. So these aren't isolated interventions, they synergize the components and amplify each of those effects. So we have to when we do one thing, like we eat healthy, then it means that we can perform better in the gym or when we exercise. That will then help us to improve our sleep, and then everything kind of works together to improve itself. So you want to build and preserve lean muscle, and that way you can kind of improve your metabolic engine and have that emergency reserve of amino acids. So by doing strength training, going to the gym, lifting weights, doesn't have to be very heavy, just something reasonable to give your body a reason to build muscle. You want to eat for longevity and performance. You want to choose foods that are whole, that they are not processed, that if your grandma saw them, if your great-great-grandma saw them 200 years ago, she would be able to recognize them, right? Something that's natural, right? That's something that's actually grown. That's single ingredient in most cases, okay? You don't want to be eating highly processed foods because those are terrible for you. And if you do have an addiction to those highly processed foods because they have been scientifically designed to make you addicted to them, then you should limit them to either, once a week or one meal a week or one day a week, something where you limit them, but eventually try and completely get away from them. You want to prioritize sleep and recovery. Your body recovers during sleep. We always, as South Asians, and at least out of the community that I'm from, we kind of downplay the benefit of sleep. It'd be like, okay, we have to stay up longer to study. We have to stay up longer to work. We prioritize work and study over our sleep. But sleep, it's the key to our metabolic health, the key to our hormonal health. Lots of issues come from a lack of sleep. Every single animal, from everything down from like the from like the amphibian level, sleeps. So sleeping puts you, as an animal, it puts you in danger, because if you sleep, you can't look after, you can't protect yourself from predators. Sleep has evolved because it was very useful. It was more useful than not sleeping. So we have to prioritize sleep. If every animal down to the amphibian level sleeps, it means that it's incredibly, incredibly important for our day-to-day functions and our survival. We want to track key health metrics. Now, this could be seeing your doctor every so often and checking different health metrics through a blood test. This could be also wearing a smartwatch, like this one. You don't need this, but it does help to have one of these. Something where you can track your health metrics and see if you're improving over time. They don't necessarily have to be digital. Doesn't necessarily have to cost you any money. If you go for a jog and you find that you can now do a kilometer in less time, then that means your health metrics have improved. If you go for a jog and you find that you get tired sooner than you did before, then your health metrics have gone down. There's many different ways to measure this, but just having something to measure is important. Okay, so going into detail about building and preserving lean muscle. So muscle isn't just for aesthetics or athletic performance. It is your metabolic engine, your body's glucose disposal system, and your emergency reserve during illness or stress. From a biological investment perspective, muscle tissue is perhaps the single highest return asset you can build. What's great about this is when you build muscle, it tells your muscle cells to absorb more sugar. Sugar can be stored in multiple ways in your body. Now, long time ago, humans did not have a high carbohydrate diet. They had mostly a diet that was high in fats and high in proteins. Okay, now with our sugars, we can store about 200 grams of sugar in the form of something called glycogen, and glycogen is stored in our muscle tissue and in our livers. Now, in our livers, it normally saturates, which means it gets full very soon. But the more muscle we have, the more of the sugar that we eat can be stored in the muscle and not get put into our fat cells. Okay, because when it gets put into our fat cells grow. Then eventually, this can lead to things like what's it called, insulin resistance and diabetes. But yeah, so if we look at this scientifically, the metabolic benefits of this is that we can improve insulin sensitivity up to 40%. We can enhance glucose disposal independent of insulin. We have a higher resting metabolic rate, which means you can eat more in a day and not gain weight. You have better lipid profiles, which means that you have the better types of fats within you when you do this. In terms of structural benefits, it gives you stronger bones and reduces osteoporosis risk. It protects your joints and connective tissues and improves posture and movement quality and lowers injury risk. If you were, everyone kind of knows this, where like if you have an elderly relative and they fall, and if they haven't really built up any strong muscles around their hips, then that fall can actually cause them to break their hips. It can cause them to really hurt themselves, and that can be very serious. But having that stronger muscle around those bones also stresses the bone to build more bone tissue. Now, people think that bones just remain the same, but bones, they're constantly getting better and getting stronger and then breaking down depending on whether you're stressing them or not. And usually by exercising, by doing some sort of strength training, you can improve the density of your bones. And if you may have a fall, if you're a bit older, or if you have a family member who's a bit older, or if somebody hits you or something, then having denser bones means that you can protect yourself from that bone breaking, and that comes with strength training. And in terms of longevity benefits, this reduces having increased muscle mass reduces all-cause mortality and leads to better function capacity in older age and preserves your independence, and it enhances your quality of life. So in terms of your action plan for this, you want to schedule 2 to 3 strength training sessions weekly. I highly recommend getting a gym membership. It doesn't matter if it's the cheapest gym membership you can get. You want to focus on doing movements which incorporate as many muscles as possible, and just go to the gym and try out what you can to try and build muscle. So you want to recruit multiple muscle groups simultaneously and build that strength in your body. You want to maintain some sort of daily movement. Now, ideally, you want to walk for 7 to 10K steps every day. I know that for everybody, that might be a bit difficult. It might not be very realistic. I would probably say, start with something very simple, something that you can't go wrong. Start with just 2,000 steps. Then move your way up to 3,000 steps a day. Then move your way up to 4,000 steps a day. And try and do some sort of some sort of post-meal walks. If you eat a very big meal and you go for a walk, what helps, what that does is it tells your body to kind of absorb these nutrients better, more efficiently, especially if it's high in carbohydrates, and it helps you process those nutrients in a much more healthy way. You want to also progressively overload. So you don't want to do the same weight every single time. If I went to the gym and I only did 3 kilograms, and then I got used to 3 kilograms and I only did 3 kilograms, I won't grow any muscle. You want to start with 3 kilograms. Once it becomes too easy, go higher, 5 kilograms. Then after that, go higher, 7 kilograms, 8 kilograms, 9. Just keep going until you slowly build up your strength in different parts of your body. So for busy professionals, this represents approximately just 3 to 4 hours a week. That's less than 3% of your waking hours. And these returns compound across your entire lifespan. And the return on investment is extraordinary. So even though, we're only putting in 3 to 4 hours every week, I'd say that these 3 to 4 hours that you put in would help you earn hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars, throughout your lifetime, just because you're healthier, because you feel better, because by virtue of doing that, you're going to want to work harder. You're going to be able to work harder for longer. You're going to be able to look after your family, to play with your kids in the future, because you've taken the time to look after yourself. So the next thing we'll be talking about is eating for longevity and performance. Now, food is a capital you invest in your body daily. And even if every meal is either a deposit into your health account or a withdrawal from it. So for modern professionals navigating traditional South Asian food cultures alongside contemporary lifestyles, strategic nutrition becomes essential. Now, when we have, our South Asian diets, our South Asian cuisine was developed in a time where we were moving so much more, that we were spending the whole day working on paddy fields, working on farms, looking after our livestock, and being very active. And because of this, we had these huge meals where we have lots of rice, lots of carb-loaded food. Now, problem is, we don't live a lifestyle anymore like that. 90% of our work is just sitting down. We're just going to sit down, we're going to talk to people over the internet, or we're going to talk to people and clients, and we're going to sit at a desk, we're going to do work. That doesn't require us to move around that much. So if we continue to eat in the way that our ancestors did, and not take into account that we've kind of changed the way that we live our lifestyles, then we're going to be very unhealthy. The diet does not match the lifestyle. So we want to make sure that instead of eating a lot of carbohydrates, we want to focus on eating more protein and focus on sources of carbohydrates that are less dense, less unhealthy. So you want to prioritize protein. So you want to target 25 to 30 grams per meal, and that's about 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight daily. So protein is the most thermogenic macronutrient, so 20 to 30% of calories burned during digestion, and the most satiating, which means protein makes you feel full. The reason why a lot of us feel hungry, even after we've eaten potato chips or we've eaten just rice or something with very minimal protein, is that our body it's not asking for the carbohydrates. It's not asking for the rice. It wants the proteins. It wants the amino acids within those proteins. And if you eat protein, you'll find yourself not having as many hunger cravings because your body wanted the protein, you've given it the protein, and now you feel better about yourself. So eating a high protein meal is essential for muscle protein synthesis, immune function, and your metabolic health. So the quality sources include fish, especially fatty fish like salmon and mackerel, chicken breast, eggs, Greek yogurt, lentils, chickpeas, paneer, tofu, and whey protein. Now, personally, I think that fish, chicken breasts, eggs, Greek yogurt, They're great sources of protein. If you are vegetarian, then these other sources of protein can be good as well. Yeah, yeah. Um, Depending on who you are and depending on what kind of health metrics you have, I might throw in certain types of red meats as well. But generally, in most cases, white meats actually have a better protein to calorie ratio, which means that you can get more protein for less calories. So vegetable volume as well. So target half your plate, minimum 400 grams daily, as vegetables. So vegetables provide fiber, feeding beneficial gut bacteria, micronutrients, supporting thousands of enzymatic functions, enzymatic reactions, and phytonutrients, which reduce inflammation and oxidative stress. And they create volume without excessive calories. So you want to prioritize variety. So dark leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, colorful peppers, tomatoes, okra, bitter gourd. There's certain ones here that are better than other ones. Now, with vegetables, some people get weird reactions with vegetables. There's certain vegetables where if you eat them, you might get a higher chance of getting kidney stones and other types of issues. What I would probably say is, you want to eat things like tomatoes, peppers, okra, yeah, so those kind of ones. And you can also want to focus on eating, things like fruits as well, like, high quality fruits. You have to have, so the next thing is control carbohydrates. So the strategy is small servings, especially at dinner. So carbohydrates aren't necessarily the enemy, but portion control is critical for South Asians with higher insulin resistance risk. So timing matters. So larger portions post-workout when insulin sensitivity is elevated is better, and smaller portions at dinner when activity decreases is better. So if you have small servings of rice, so not heaped servings, but a reasonable serving of rice, roti, quinoa, sweet potato, oats, paired with some sort of protein and vegetables to moderate your glycemic response, which is the response of your sugar being absorbed into your bloodstream. You also want to incorporate healthy fats. So you want to target a moderate amount from quality sources. So fats support hormone production, nutrient absorption, satiety, and cellular health. And the key is choosing anti-inflammatory sources and appropriate quantities. So moderate ghee, nuts, almonds, walnuts, seeds, olive oil, mustard oil, fatty fish, and avocado are great sources of fats. So you want to prioritize sleep and recovery as well. So sleep is the highest ROI habit, and most professionals systematically ignore this, treating it as a luxury rather than biological necessity. And this is catastrophically short-sighted. Sleep isn't downtime. It's when your body processes the deposits you've made through training and nutrition. So if you don't sleep properly, then the training you've done will be impaired. So I could train very hard at a workout, and if I don't sleep properly, then it means I won't get the full benefit of that workout. So there's compounding returns of quality sleep. You have hormonal optimization, so growth hormone release, so 70% occurs during deep sleep, essential for muscle growth and repair. You have testosterone maintenance if you're a man, so 1 week of 5-hour nights reduces testosterone by 10 to 15%. Cortisol, which is a stress hormone regulation, so poor sleep elevates stress hormones, promoting fat storage. You have leptin and ghrelin balance. So if you don't sleep enough, you will feel hungry and you will start to crave more foods. It'll be much harder for you to control yourself. Cognitive and metabolic benefits. You have memory consolidation. So this helps you learn things more effectively. You can make better decisions. So if you don't sleep properly, your insulin sensitivity goes down, and your immune function also goes down as well. So in terms of what to do, target 7 to 8 hours nightly and make this a non-negotiable in your life. So studies consistently show that chronic sleep restrictions of less than 7 hours increases the risk of obesity, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease, and all-cause mortality. Even though individual variation exists, most adults require 7 to 8 hours for optimal function. And make sure that you are consistent. So have a fixed bedtime and a wake-up time, even on weekends, and your circadian rhythm thrives on predictability. So regular sleep schedules disrupt metabolic health as severely as insufficient sleep duration. So you want to kind of go to the doctors and get your bloods done, and you want to check that you have a healthy, healthy health metrics or good health metrics. This is probably really important this is more important for people that are a bit older. You want to make sure that you have, all of these, roughly these levels, or all the recommended levels here. I recommend speaking to a doctor about these kind of things. They would know a lot more than me, as I'm still not at that position yet. But these are just some general guidelines to help you. Okay, so this is just I'll review. So the compound returns. So you want to consistently invest in your body over decades and improve your health, because that will give you energy for longer. It would improve your cognitive function. It would mean that you can work longer. You can have a much longer and successful career. You can reduce your lifetime healthcare costs, and you can improve your quality of life. You can make sure that you are, staying healthy. You're being a productive member of your family. You're taking care of your family by taking care of yourself first. So just as a well-managed investment portfolio grows faster, the earlier you start, so does your health capital. The compounding effect is undeniable. Small, consistent actions today create exponential returns over decades, but the inverse is equally true. So if you neglect compounds just as powerfully in the wrong direction. And your body doesn't care about your career achievements, your bank balance, or your professional reputation. It only responds to the signals you send it daily through your actions, what you eat, how you move, and whether you sleep, and the stress you manage or don't. So I hope you found this video useful. I didn't really think it was going to go for this long, but if you did find this useful, if you did make it to the end of this, maybe leave a comment down below of something that you found very helpful. Share this with other people that you think might benefit from this message. We also have I think we have a free metabolic health guide, or we have a health guide somewhere. I'll link it in the description. If anybody wants to check it out, they definitely can.